Okay, so now we are at Rule 14. Content of a petition for a writ of certiorari. This is probably one of the most important parts of this because this is where you're getting all of the rules of how the paperwork has to look, the formatting, the font, the spacing, all of that ridiculousness that they make you do. I mean, I understand having standards, but I mean, this is just a little bit ridiculous. It's, I could understand it being like, Arial on a 12 font, double spacing, like typical college essays and stuff, but boy oh boy. So this is why I decided to do this separate from Rule 13, because this is probably going to be a 12-minute video. It's very long thing to read. And so, but this is just the extra complication of it, because it's like you already are having to learn how to be a lawyer within a matter of hours, days, or weeks, because you're representing yourself, and then they just got to throw this in here too to make it even more difficult. But alright, so let's get into this. Rule 14, content of a petition for a writ of certiorari. 1. A petition for a writ of certiorari shall contain, in the order indicated, A. The questions presented for review expressed concisely in relation to the circumstances of the case without unnecessary detail. The questions should be short and should not be argumentative or repetitive. If the petitioner or respondent is under a death sentence that may be affected by the disposition of the petition, the notice capital case shall precede the questions presented. The questions shall be set out on the first page following the cover, and no other information may appear on that page. The statement of any question presented is deemed to comprise every subsidiary question fairly included therein. Only the questions set out in the petition or fairly included therein will be considered by the court. B. A list of all parties to the proceeding in the court whose judgment is sought to be reviewed, unless the caption of the case contains the names of all the parties, and a corporate disclosure statement as required by Rule 29.6. C. If the petition prepared under Rule 33.1 exceeds 1,500 words or exceeds 5 pages if prepared under Rule 33.2, a table of contents and a table of cited authorities. The table of contents shall include the items contained in the appendix. D. Citations of the official and unofficial reports of the opinions and orders entered in the case by courts or administrative agencies. E. A concise statement of the basis for jurisdiction in the court showing 1. The date the judgment or order sought to be reviewed was entered, and if applicable, a statement that the petition is filed under the court's Rule 11. 2. The date of any order respecting rehearing and the date and terms of any orders granting an extension of time to file the petition for a writ of certiorari. 3. Express reliance on Rule 12.5 when a cross petition for a writ of certiorari is filed under that rule, and the date of docketing of the petition for a writ of certiorari in connection with which the cross petition is filed. 4. The statutory provision believed to confer on this court jurisdiction to review on a writ of certiorari the judgment or order in question. And 5. If applicable, a statement that the notifications required by Rule 29.4b or c have been made. F. The constitutional provisions, treaties, statutes, ordinances, and regulations involved in the case, set out verbatim with appropriate citation. If the provisions involved are lengthy, their citation alone suffices at this point, and their pertinent text shall be set out in the appendix referred to in subparagraph 1I. G. A concise statement of the case setting out the facts material to consideration of questions presented and also containing the following. 1. A review of a state court judgment is sought. Specification of the stage in the proceedings, both in the court of first instance and in the appellate court, when the federal questions sought to be reviewed were raised, the method or manner of raising them and the way which they were passed by those courts, and pertinent quotations of specific portions of the record or summary thereof, with specific references to the places in record where the matter appears. Example, court opinion ruling on exception, portions of court's charge, and exception thereto, assignment of error. So as to show that the federal question was timely and properly raised, and that this court has jurisdiction to review the judgment on a writ of certiorari. When the portions of the record relied under this subparagraph are voluminous, they shall be included in the appendix referred to subparagraph 1. 2. If review of a judgment of a United States Court of Appeals is sought, the basis for federal jurisdiction, the court of first instance. H. A direct and concise argument amplifying the reasons relied on for allowance of the writ. See Rule 10. 1. An appendix containing in the order. I'm sorry, this one's I this time actually. Sorry. I. An appendix containing in the order indicated. 1. The opinions, orders, findings of fact, and conclusions of law, whether written or orally given and transcribed, entered in conjunction with the judgment sought to be reviewed. 2. Any other relevant opinions, orders, findings of fact, and conclusions of law entered in the case by courts or administrative agencies, and if reference thereto is necessary to ascertain the grounds of the judgment of those in companion cases. Each document shall include the caption showing the name of the issuing court or agency, the title and number of the case, and the date of entry. 3. Any order of rehearing, including the caption showing the name of the issue court, the title and number of the case, and the date of entry. 4. The judgment sought to be reviewed of the date of its entry is different from the date of the opinion or order required in subparagraph 1 of this subparagraph. 5. Material required by subparagraphs 1F or 1G, and 6. Any other material the petitioner believes essential to understand the petition. If the material required by the subparagraph is voluminous, it may be presented in a separate volume or volumes with appropriate covers. All contentions in support of a petition for writ of certiorari shall be set out in the body of the petition as provided in subparagraph 1H of this rule. No separate brief in support of a petition for a writ of certiorari may be filed, and the clerk will not file any petition for a writ of certiorari to which any supporting brief is annexed or appended. 3. A petition for a writ of certiorari should be stated briefly in plain terms and may not exceed the word or page limits specified in Rule 33. 4. The failure of a petitioner to present with accuracy, brevity, and clarity whatever is essential to ready and adequate understanding of the points requiring consideration is sufficient reason for the court to deny a petition. 5. The clerk determines that a petition submitted timely and in good faith is in a form that does not comply with this rule or with Rule 33 or 34. The clerk will return it with a letter indicating the deficiency. A corrected petition submitted in accordance with Rule 29.2 no more than 60 days after the date of the clerk's letter will be deemed timely. Okay, so that's the end of Rule 14. This actually didn't have to do with the spacing. I think that might be the Rule 33 that they keep mentioning. Yeah, it's Rule 33, I think, that they're talking about. Right there. Booklet format. So, anyway. But that, it does explain what you need to have in your petition. Similar to this packet that they sent. This has similar information to that. So that's the first part that you need to know. You need to have like a little guideline thing wrote out and everything. So you know what the main points are you want to make, and you need to make sure what questions you present to the court, that all similar questions will fall underneath that category. So any question that you want them to consider, you have to put in there. Otherwise, it's not going to be considered if you bring it up after they accept your petition. But from what I'm reading, everything has to be really brief, and that's kind of difficult for me. Anyway, so that was Rule 14. I hope that helped you guys, and I will see you in the next video.